You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the June 20th, 2023 meeting of the Michigan City Common Council. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, June 20th, Michigan City Council meeting. You would please silence all electrical devices, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and remember the silent prayer. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, on the roll call, please.
Mr. Dabney,
Present.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, Mr. Mack,
Present.
Ms. Deitch,
Present.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Present.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Present.
Mr. Simmons, Ms. Jagus,
Present.
and Ms. Tillman.
Present.
We have 7 present and 2 absent.
And Mr. Simmons and Mr. Fitzpatrick both contacted me and are excused from the meeting. Approval of minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Second. Motion to approve by Councilwoman Deitch and seconded by Councilman Paul Prespolinski. Madam Clerk, on the vote, please.
Mr. Mack,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jagus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
and Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees. Reports of standing committees.
Yes.
Councilwoman Deitch.
Just briefly, we had a workshop earlier today about our 11th Street double track project. Just talking about funding and then an overview of where we're at in the project. And there will be there's something on the agenda tonight in reference to our station block that we'll be discussing, but we also have a presentation from Flaherty and Collins on the agenda this evening as well. No decisions were made. It was a workshop.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports of standing committees? Councilman Paul Prespolinski.
We also had a workshop this afternoon on 2 subjects, and that was the lateral repair section to be added to the code, and also the problem with people putting excessive amounts of rubbish out to be collected by the refuge department. And I think that the workshops were informative and that we are going to move with the sanitary district and the inspection department to be more cohesive in their attempt to crack down on these violations and people who are actually doing the being the bad what was that term you lose that the bad actors in our community and making it bad for people who are following what they need to do when they put refuge out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other reports of standing committees? Councilman Dabney, is your light on?
No.
Okay. All right. Moving on, Finance Committee meeting. Councilwoman Tillman.
Thank you. The Michigan City Finance Committee meeting did not meet this evening. However, the Michigan City Riverboat and Boyd claims docket for June 20th, 2023. Riverboat Funds number 2235, $167,495.38. Riverboat EFT Fund number 2235, $4,801,982. Board Development EFT Fund number 2504, $0. Total claims $4,969,477.38. That is for New Tech in the amount of $153,615. Kaiser Police Supply Inc., $7,445.38. LaPorte Chrysler Inc., $6,435, again totaling $167,495.38. And the Riverboat EFT from funds number 2235, those were the EFT of the $4.8 million. Totaling $4,969,477.38. Also, the City of Michigan City Riverboat Statement of Cash Position, fiscal year to date, 6/20/2023, unexpended balance, $6,439,166.03. I would also like to add for all the city departments that the 2024 budget hearings is approaching, and I want to share with you the current budget hearing dates, which will be August 21st, August 22nd, August 23rd, August 24th, and 25th, Monday, August 28th, and Tuesday, August 29th will be for any makeup and follow-up meetings or questions. One moment. The council will hear the 2024 budgets beginning on, oh goodness, one moment. Bear with me. Beginning on September 6th, first reading, second reading on September 19th, and third reading on October 3rd. All department heads, as I did last year, you will all be receiving a questionnaire in regards to what your needs are. And again, I emphasize on this, it's your need. So I don't know if you've already completed your meetings with the mayor for your budget for your department, but this is the time to include all the equipment, all the things that you need. And the reason why I'm putting an emphasis on this is because within the past few months and currently the council have been receiving a lot of requests for additional appropriations for equipment. So in your new Q&A, I'm going to be putting questions in there in regards to your non-fleet vehicles, your fleets that you have, the year, the make, and the model, the conditions of them, and if there is a need for them to be replaced. So we don't want to overlook anything and then get into the middle of 2024 and everyone's bombarding from the departments to the council saying we need appropriation for this equipment or that equipment. And it needs to make sure that it is justifiable and support. If it is something that you're going to need, make sure that you provide us with a proposal and with all the supporting stats in order for us to review your request. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Tillman. Claims docket for June 6th, 2023, Fund 2235, Riverboat Claims, $167,495.38. EFT under the same fund number, $4,801,982. Fund 2504, Boyd Development, 0, and ETF is 0 for total claims of $4,969,477.38. Is there a motion to pay the claims?
So move.
Councilman Preselinski,
Second.
motion to pay? Who's that? Oh,
Second.
okay. And second by Councilman Mack. Madam Clerk, on the vote, please.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jigus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
and Mr. Mack.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Reports from boards and commissions. Any reports from boards or commissions?
I do have a brief one.
Okay, Councilwoman Deitch.
So we have a workshop tomorrow, joint workshop with the Fire Merit Commission in the EOC room at 4 p.m. tomorrow, and we're just reviewing the Fire Merit Ordinance and having a discussion on lateral transfers. So that's what the meeting, the workshop is for. Is really a working session going through the Merit Ordinance with some changes that they would like to see.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports from boards or commissions? Having none, reports of special or select committees? Special or select committees, having none. Moving on to reports from the mayor or other city officers and departments. And number 1 in line, we have the Michigan City Fire Department, Chief Legault, presenting certificates of life-saving challenge coins to 4 civilians this evening.
Good evening, Council. I'm Jeff Bruder, Fire Marshal. This is Tia Free, our Public Information Officer. I'd like to start by asking the following individuals to join us if they're here, please. Mr. Trevor Brockenshire, Jonathan Steinman, Malik Shannon, and Pat O'Brien. If you're here, please come down front. I'll give you a brief synopsis of what we're looking at here, everyone. So you may have heard it already. May 23rd, approximately 8:45 in the morning, we were called for a structure fire in the Dunewood Mobile Home Park on 212. As crews went en route, the dispatchers came across the radio and advised us of entrapment. And that's when someone gets trapped and no way out of a fire. Anytime we hear that, we know that, it's time for us to step up our game because the stakes just got higher. The bar's been raised. As we continue on, received word from dispatch that it's a possibility that everyone was out, which brings a huge sigh of relief. However, the victims of this fire didn't walk out on their own. They were rescued by the citizens standing up here tonight. These individuals used their own set of values, put down their tools, walked out of their homes and stopped whatever they were doing to aid another human being in a desperate time of need. Due to a pending investigation, I can't comment on the details or circumstances. However, it was noted that some of these men attempted to go through the front door, which wasn't going to happen. They breached a window with a jack stand, and they rescued a 77-year-old woman, Mrs. Sandra Roots, who is here tonight, and her 4-year-old great-grandson out of the back bedroom of a mobile home that was filled with nothing but toxic smoke and unbearable heat. Injuries sustained would warrant Ms. Root to be flown to a local trauma burn unit for treatment, and our great-grandson was released later that day. And they were all because of the quick actions of these men. The Michigan City Fire Department would like to recognize these individuals for successful life-saving efforts towards their fellow man. Thank you. Give me a certificate.
They weren't giving them. We want to, you know.
Thank you, Mayor.
Did you get that?
Yep, absolutely. We'll take care of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you for my needs. I need to was you. Thank you. Oh, thank you. You thank you. Thank you. Really wonderful for me. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mayor. Thank you, Dad. Absolutely. Well,
It's in place.
that's all right. No, why not?
Can I get a picture of all of us?
Thank you.
Yeah.
One.
Let's go off in the lobby.
Yeah, is there anyone from the council that would like to add any comments to this heroic event here this evening with these three true Michigan City heroes doing what they did? Anybody like to add anything?
Just that's what neighbors do. I hope that's what all our neighbors would do. I'm just glad she made it.
Yeah, I would like to say a couple words to the gentleman. That is being a true, loving human being when you put your life on the line to do what you gentlemen did. Not even from the aspect of being a citizen of Michigan City, just being a true human being and looking out for your fellow human being. God bless you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. All the Michigan City residents, I'm sure, also do. And I'm glad to see that grandma and the 4-year-old grandson there are doing fine. And thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good job. Let's give him one more hand of appreciation. Okay, moving on. Mr. Skylar York, the Planning and Redevelopment Director, is here this evening to give a presentation on the 11th Street Block Garage and Mixed Use Building Project Overview and Financing.
Hey, good afternoon, Council. Thanks for having us tonight. In light of starting our bonding project with the station block and all the inner work, all the pieces and things that are associated with the station block, it's been a long time to get here. So thanks for hearing us out tonight. And with me tonight, I have representatives from Flaherty and Collins. I also have our development counsel from Indianapolis, Adam Collins. No relation there. So with me tonight from Flaherty and Collins, I have Brian Prince, who's the principal developer, and I have Mr. Keith Cole. And Keith, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to mess this up. You are head of the architectural division, I think. If I messed that up, I'm so sorry. Also with me tonight, I have our bond counsel in-house, which is Adam. I'm sorry. there's too many A's, Andy Mauser and Randolph Rampolla. They will be presenting a little bit later when we get into the building corporation. They're gonna come up and help you do that. But tonight, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Brian Prince to give kind of a overview of the project and give you some statistics and some interesting facts about the Flaherty Collins development and how they operate. Keith Cole will then follow up with a little bit more in depth about the project, and then we'll finalize this presentation with Adam Collins, who will come in and talk a little bit about operations of the garage. With that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Brian Prince. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, council. My name is Brian Prince, principal with Flaherty Collins Development out of Indianapolis, Indiana, as well as vice president of development and the lead developer of this project here. We're based in Indianapolis, as I said. We have a niche from a development perspective, public-private partnership development. 99.9% of what we do across the country are these types of developments. We have about 14,000 units under management. We've developed over $3 billion worth of property across the country. I'd say we're one of the most active mixed-use urban infill P3 developers in the country. Next slide. This is showing a map, some of the markets that we're in. Economic impact of this project, kind of wanted to highlight a few things here. So I say this project here, the first 5 years will have over a $200 million economic impact to this project. We had a similar project, not similar in scope, but similar as mixed use in Elkhart, Indiana, not too far from here, where we had Crow Horwath do a economic impact study. The city commissioned that study. $35 million project had a 65 million plus economic impact to the local economy in the first 5 years. This project's roughly $93 million. And so we fully anticipate that just the project alone will have close to a $200 million impact, in addition to the indirect impact of the additional jobs that are created from this, the catalyst of other projects that will come behind this development as well. And the development we have in Mishawaka, Indiana, just to show you, for example, the type of impact this type of development can have in your community. We saw that 80% of our residents in that development came from outside of the area. Additionally, 35% of those residents in that development came from outside of the state of Indiana. But what we see is that the people that come to our developments that are now net new to the community, new income in this community, decide to stay. So we track our residents where they want to see their security deposits go when they leave. And we find out where they're moving to when we send their check. 50% of those residents are staying in the same zip code or in the same area and buying a home and making the community their long-term home. They become very comfortable with the amenities that the neighborhoods and communities offer, and they want to continue to be able to access those amenities until they stay local. So you bring them in and then you keep them. Currently, as they look at the site, city owns this property. It's got $0 in assessed value. After we develop this project, it'll have an assessed value of over $50 million on this project. We also are given a minimum taxpayer agreement, I think of $810,000 to $814,000 on an annual basis from this project. Obviously, we're going to create several hundred jobs from a construction standpoint, a property management standpoint, and then the retail standpoint as well with this development. These individuals that are coming here to live at this property have additional disposable income to help support the businesses locally. The goal of this project is the state's objective is to, steal people away from Illinois, Chicago, high wage earners, get them to spend their dollars over here on the Indiana side. So that'll also help with the local retail, restaurant businesses as well to keep them thriving. Next slide. Kind of resident profile kind of go through. Typically in our projects, urban infill, we see a 70-30 split, 70% being the young professional demographic, 30% being the empty nester. I think here in this market, we'll see a higher percentage of the empty nesters wanting to be active, in the downtown walkable environment. And we've seen in other markets around the country as well that those empty nester demographics are increasing. You want the low maintenance living, and you want the amenities of the development. As Keith will kind of lay out here in a second, roughly 12% of our units are studios. The studios, I believe, give us an opportunity to create more of the workforce opportunity within the development. Individuals pay for just enough unit that they need as opposed to paying for more unit than they actually need. It gives those, retail service level workers an opportunity to be a part of this great development at a lower entry point. Next slide. So Keith, I'm going to have Keith come up here in a second, and Keith is going to talk about really the programmatic outlook for this development, site plan, some pretty picture renderings to show you guys, give a little flavor of what we're looking at developing here, and then we'll pass it on to Adam Collins. Thank you, guys.
Good day, Council. As Brian mentioned, I'm Keith Cole, Flaherty & Collins, oversee and coordinate with the architectural and engineering groups to hopefully bring this vision to life. High level, say lay of the land of this property. There's two project components. One is a support of NICD's double track that's taking place along 11th Street that's getting ready to launch and open with access corridor over to Chicago. In the foreground of this rendering here, you can see the double track that runs along 11th Street. In the near distance here, you can see the residential component, which I'll go through in more detail. And then off in the far distance, there's the limestone and red brick structure that has the South Shore historic facade, which we've worked through the overall project with the historic preservation group here in town and received their approval to move forward with the design intent to try and keep the station as a kind of history piece and monument to the South Shore line here. If you want to go ahead and flip to the next slide. From the South Shore corner that's down here in the foreground with work that's already started on the station platform and access to the train line that's here, the train line that's here. The historic facade that's there in the center is the entry point to the long-term station access and ticketing to the South Shore Rail. The building that surrounds it is primarily beyond the station, a 542 space parking garage. You'll see in a future rendering that there is also a roof park as part of the 6th floor of the parking structure to provide access to public and the residential component of the multifamily community that's there. This view is from the southeast, so plan north, and this view is top of screen. The right side of the project or plan east would be Pine. The left side of the project or west would be Franklin Street. So this view is tight. Tweet set a lot. Yeah, if you want to leave it there as Franklin, and then along the north or top of screen would be 10th Street, and then you can see along the bottom of screen or plan south would be the double track project as part of NICD's initiative there for the South Shore. As you can see on the right half of this slide, or this slide either way, is the roof park progression. And so mostly would be planted space with minimal programming. It's not meant to be an event space, but more of a passive garden in this area. The left side would be kind of in the upper left or the northwest corner is a 12-story tower, which you saw in some of the earlier renderings. That's primary residential with the leasing and amenity space along Franklin at the west. The kind of lower left rectangle in this plan would be a mid-rise, a 4-story stick construction over 1.5-story commercial space that boasts approximately 6,000 square feet of commercial ideal infill for retail or restaurant use. You want to flip one more? So you can see within this slide, residential along that northwest corner is the start of the 220 total units. So trying to activate with walk-ups on that street front along 10th Street as well. The garage does have 2 access points to the 540 spaces. The majority of that are for commuter-based spaces that are shared over time with the secured residential on the 5th floor of the parking structure. There's access off 10th Street as well as Pine Street on the east. Go ahead. With the connection of the transit-oriented development, the TOD, the character of this interior as far as the residential community is geared towards kind of the history of the South Shore, with the thought that we can integrate the history and some of the historical photos throughout the residential piece and really tie that to the fabric of the community. So this would be the first floor entry lobby that contains the amenities, where there'll be full service fitness, the leasing office, a co-work space, and kind of early morning coffee support. And if you flip to the next slide, we do have a 12th floor space for residential use, indoor and an outdoor terrace that looks north towards the lake. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Adam. Thank you, Council.
Councilors, good evening. My name is Adam Collins. I'm an attorney with Wallach Summers and Haas, based out of Indianapolis. And this is the tragedy of being a real estate lawyer. The developers get to come talk about, the renderings and show all the pretty pictures, and I get to talk about garage operations. Not exactly always the most exciting topic, but this project is a little bit different, as I think you heard Brian and Keith talk about. There's a 540 space garage on the project, the majority of which are spaces that are dedicated to NICTE's use as part of the South Shore project. But in addition, the city has a couple of different amenities that are there and available. So one of the additional things we have to work through is just what are the rights and obligations of each party as it relates to the garage. The way in which we do that is typically through a document called a declaration. It really governs, again, what the rights of different users, property owners, et cetera, are to a particular property. So if anyone's ever lived in a house with a homeowners association, a very kind of similar concept. Here, there are really a couple of different benefits that the city gets from the garage in addition to the project, and one obligation that I wanted to walk through. So the benefits are the exclusive use of the rooftop amenity, as I think you saw in the images that Keith went through. So that's a specific piece that the city thought was important to the project, and so has been included, and that will be the exclusive use of the city. And I'll say I use the kind of term city and commission interchangeably here. I know they're somewhat different, but just colloquially, that's how I'm referring to it. So first, you'll have the obligation, not the obligation, but the right to use that top deck, the rooftop amenity of the parking garage. Secondly, will be the use of the NICTE spaces when they're not in use by commuters. So one of the things that in my experience, and we represent municipalities all across the state of Indiana, is that parking, especially when you start to look at redevelopment of downtown urban districts, becomes incredibly important, especially as you're looking at nightlife. People have the ability to come in, enjoy what a city has to offer. You have those spaces. So in this instance, NICTE uses those spaces, I believe, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or it might be 7 to 3, somewhere around that. At any time in which those spaces aren't expressly reserved for NICTE, they can be used by any member of the public, anyone visiting the development, anyone visiting the area. So when you talk about 400 spaces, parking spaces that are available, at least initially,
free of charge. That's a huge amenity for any city to have. Along with that kind of use, and this is common in any kind of project that we work on that has garages like this, is when the city has an amenity or has rights to a space, it typically also has to pick up a portion of the cost. So in this case, we have ongoing operational and capital costs that are related to the garage. Over time, you know, the garage may need to be tuck pointed, or brick or masonry needs to be replaced on the exterior. And the way in which those costs are paid are by the users of the garage. Now, how that occurs is really by proportion of the use. So in this case, when we talk about the cost of, say, using the parking spaces, those parking spaces are going to have to be cleaned, swept, all those kind of things. That'll ultimately be the majority responsibility of NICD, because they own 400 and some odd spaces out of the 500. The developer will also take a portion of that. What the city will ultimately be responsible for is a percentage based upon its ownership of the rooftop deck amenity. So in this case, we're still going through the process, working with both NICD and the developer here, but we think that accounts to about 15% of the overall cost at most. And that would account, based on similar projects that, you know, we've looked at and the developers looked at, $20,000 to $25,000 per year, which would be an annual cost that the city would have in terms of overall kind of contribution towards, again, repair, capital replacement, insurance, all those kind of operating aspects that a building has. In our experience, typically, you know, when you have amenities, something like this, if the rooftop is operated, a lot of times that's what folks do, is use the operational funds or surplus that comes from that operation to pay that cost. But if not, those funds have to be directed from another place. But those costs remain in place. They're governed by this document. It's recorded against the land. It stays in place during the operation of the project. And so that's, I think, kind of preliminarily where we're at with the garage operation. So I know it's, you know, a diagram, maybe it's a little bit harder, but happy to take any questions anyone might have.
Any questions by council members? Councilman Paul Przybylski.
Yes, you know, the parking garage, we're going to have use of the 400 spaces. What was the time frame on the use of those 400 spaces for the city?
So roughly from 2 p.m. after 2 p.m. in the afternoon till 6 a.m. in the morning. So it's any time that they're not being used expressly for NICD. And I'll admit, I've got one project here, one project in Valpo that both have this same kind of component. So it might be 7 to 3 here or something like that, but it's the same, you know, rough, very early in the morning till very early afternoon.
So how is someone going to know if it's being used by NICD, patrons, or if somebody's just parking in there? Are they going to be giving out slips?
So that's really probably, you know, a developer question. They're ultimately going to be responsible for operating the garage. And that's one of the things I probably should have said that I didn't, which is overall the developer's responsible for operating the garage day to day. So they do all the operations. The city's just responsible for paying its share of the cost. My assumption would be there would be some sort of either ticket you pull that gets validated by the commuter station once you come in there, or some other way to identify. But that'll ultimately have to be worked out between NICD and the developer. One thing I want to make clear, though, Counselor, is that your percentage of use is negotiated up front and is not based upon the actual usage. So what we go on and look at there, say those spaces, if NICD doesn't use it, NICD was going to build that garage regardless. Mm-hmm. And those spaces were going to be available for the public after that time regardless. So we look at that and say that's a public amenity that came out of that. They have to bear the cost for that. But those spaces still will be open and available for public use, just like they would have if it would have been a
NICD standalone garage.
But, but who's, how much, is NICD, or should I talk to the developer and ask him that question on the,
What's their percentage?
financing agreement?
How much is NICD contributing to the project overall?
Yes,
16 million plus the land.
16 million. What's the city, in this for?
So I think Randy, final number 18 and a half. 18 and a half. State of Indiana contributed, what I'd say is, at least what I've seen, unprecedented in terms of tax credits, $21 million to the project.
Sorry. Just to add to the operation of the garage, we already had an operations agreement, a management agreement with NICD prior to going into this kind of different path, if you will, the mixed use path or TOD path. In that agreement, the city was incomplete. They were managing the garage. We're not managing it anymore. So we've shifted that to the developer. We're still paying a share of it, but it's a much less share of operation. We were in charge of operating and the expenses of that yearly. I would say this is much less than, well, I know it is much less than what we contributed to earlier.
May I ask another question of Mr. York? Skylar, how much is the city responsible to pay on additional parking on that parking garage? Are we in the will we assume all liability for additional, what, 2 stories on the building, or?
Not with this. It was never, no, that was not the agreement. The agreement said additional parking, just in general. So it could be surface parking, anything of that nature. Doesn't necessarily mean we're going to build another 2 stories on top of this building. It's actually not designed to be that way. But in the agreement that was signed originally, should NICD want to do the total max out, which I think is 1,000 spaces downtown, then the city, the redevelopment commission, would be in charge of finding an extra spot. Now, keep in mind, this space that we're building, we've already identified some lots that can be used, and we already know we're on the hook for that, but this won't be part of this garage. We won't be building an extra 2 stories on this garage.
Okay, with that additional comment of 1,000 spaces, how many acres are you looking at on?
I would like to not pave acreage when we.
I have to, because you said you're.
No, not unless we build another garage or another development comes in and we partner with that. That's the idea. The more that we take downtown and turn into public parking or a parking lot like this in acreage, as you spoke of, we lose tax base. So it's better to stack parking and actually get it partnered with a development so we can create tax base. We don't want to lose tax base to parking lots. It just doesn't pay the bills.
Well, I understand that, but what's the cheaper of the two? Surface parking or a garage?
Yeah, the surface parking is a cheaper route, but it doesn't create tax base. Again, it goes back to that big. The redevelopment commission looks at what is the benefit over a long term, and rather than just plowing down buildings and creating parking lots, it doesn't help us out any, especially if it's municipally owned.
So have you identified any lots down there?
There are lots of lots that can hold parking structures that are associated with developments
that are in the vicinity.
Absolutely. Within that 1/4-mile walking distance is where you really want to stay. That's the sweet spot. It's a 5-minute walk. You know, that's really where you want to be, within that 1/4 mile. I mean, you could go up to a half, but I think a 1/4 is really the sweet spot for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Councilwoman
Zegas?
Yes, I have a question about the rooftop deck. So there's a possibility of maybe renting it out and charging for it to make up for the cost for the city of operating?
I think that's really an operational question, but from a restriction standpoint, there are no restrictions. So you have the ability to use it, you know, for whatever purpose you like. I mean, you're probably we might run into an issue if you're setting off fireworks at midnight every night next to the residential tower. But, you know, generally, other than that, any kind of use that you'd want to use is permitted, and you could expend those resources however you want.
Okay, question for, so with the rooftop amenity, is that going to be run by the developer or who's going to run this? I mean, what is it? Is it like a restaurant?
No, it's just
type
it's just a
venue, or does it
passive,
go out there and
just a passive space.
it's
Yeah.
just open?
Yeah, it's just an open space, a passive part, rather than looking down on cars. As part of our application for state tax credits, we put this piece into it rather than if you're in the tower and you're looking down, rather than looking at cars and creating another hot spot in the city. It just made sense to cap it, put a cap on it. And it also solved a few of the operational issues, which one of the operational issues with the last garage that we looked at, which was simply a parking garage, was snow removal, things of that nature, raining, running down through it. This solved that problem. And it created a much better space to be in or look at.
Okay, but I'm saying,
Operational, it
you
would
know,
be,
the day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
in the summertime, is there going to be, you know, like down at the Sunset Grill, is Patrick's going to be up till?
it would be controlled with a time, you know, a dusk to dawn type thing, and it would be locked off at night.
I'm saying, who's going to be operating it?
It would be the city. It would be the city's responsibility this time.
So it would be like a restaurant?
No,
Or
no, passive space.
it's just come up here and sit down?
Yep, just
Come up
passive
here.
space.
If you want some drinks, bring your own drinks.
It could be, but you could have art in it, things of that nature. Right now, it's just a passive space. Yeah,
Okay, all right,
more or less like a green roof. People, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Any other questions from council members? Councilman Przybylski, Paul?
No,
Okay. No other questions? Is that the end of the presentation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Skylar.
Thank you for hearing us tonight, and we'll be back in the future when we start the process officially. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Skylar, by the way, do you have a PowerPoint or a hard copy of
what's been shown tonight?
What you showed tonight?
We can get that to you if you like.
Yeah, just put it in you can put it in my mail.
I'll print it out for you tomorrow and put it in all your mail.
I don't know if the other council members want it, but make copies for everybody and put it in their mail slot.
I can do that.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a safe trip back to Indy.
I'm doing.
All right. Okay. We are on to our first reading or first ordinance.
So can I just get a quick one in for department heads? Wasn't listed on there, unfortunately, but usually we have the opportunity to speak.
I don't have that.
No.
Oh.
Again, Steve Porker, Chief of Police, Michigan City Police Department. I just want to take the opportunity tonight to introduce Jocelyn Colburn. She is a new social worker with Michigan City Police Department. Take the opportunity to introduce her to the council. We're excited to finally have her on board. It's been a process that we've been working through for probably about 2 years now, partnering with HealthLink on this. So Jocelyn's going to do, I know, a fantastic job just bridging the gap and getting some of our citizens in line with some services, and just help connecting, just connecting a lot of dots. Obviously the police are oftentimes first responders to individuals in times of crisis. We don't always have all the connections, all the resources available to us. Jocelyn's going to help us with that.
and give us just another avenue to get some people some assistance. So we're excited to have her on board here. So I just want to take an opportunity to introduce her. So, and thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And welcome, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much.
You'll do a great job.
Thank
I know. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Any other communications this evening? Any other communications? Moving on to resolutions. Any resolutions this evening, Madam Clerk?
A resolution by title only, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Michigan City, Indiana, authorizing the formation of nonprofit building corporation for the purpose of assisting the city with economic development projects and capital improvements, appointing directors thereof and regarding all matters related thereto. And this is introduced by Ms. Deitch.
And does the author have anything she'd like to add at this time?
Yes, we had a workshop earlier today covering some of this, and I passed out the station block bond structure. And as part of the process, we have Randy Rampola and Andy Mauser here this evening to talk a little bit about the process, because the process that we're embarking on for the station requires us to create this building corporation. So I will turn the floor over to them if you don't mind, and then move on to comments.
Gentlemen, welcome.
Good evening. Randy Rampola with Barnes and Thornburg with offices in South Bend. As the councilwoman indicated, this resolution that's before you establishes a not-for-profit building corporation. The role of the building corporation is very similar to that of the redevelopment authority in that it acts as a lessor to the redevelopment commission or to the city itself. The building corporation can either be used with the city. For example, if you were to do a large project, replace City Hall or another large municipal project that you couldn't do a GO bond, but needed to do a lease, a general obligation bond, but do a lease, you could use the building corporation for that purpose. In this case, the building corporation will serve an integral role. And as you can see on that financing structure, it will play an integral role with the redevelopment commission, providing the leasing mechanism that will provide the security for the bonds that will be issued to provide the incentive to the developer for the station block project. As part of that project as well, as part of that project financing, the Economic Development Commission will be used, and the city will serve as the issuer of the bonds as the incentive is provided under the Economic Development Statute in Indiana Code 36712. This structure is in some ways very similar to redevelopment authority, redevelopment commission lease financing that the city has used successfully in the past for public infrastructure projects, but using that lease structure coupled with the economic development statute allows you to provide the incentive to the developer, but also provide security mechanisms to provide for the issuance of bonds at the lowest possible interest rate. So the building corporation will be helpful here, but also going forward in the future could be helpful for other projects as well. With that, I think I'll stop and happy to answer any questions you may have or turn it over to Andy Mauser to talk briefly about the financing structure.
Paul, from the list.
Yeah, on this forming the not-for-profit and the structure with the holding company, how many, and you said Randy, I may call you Randy, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Is going to work in conjunction with the redevelopment commission. So what's the term? Will that be the term of how long the bonds are taken out for? To work with this till they're paid off, to work with the holding company?
So the lease in place between the building corporation and the redevelopment commission, yes, that lease will be in place for as long as the bonds are outstanding. And the building corporation will be the lessor of the asset that will be leased during that time period.
So how many years are you estimating the bonds will be taken out for?
I think we 25, 25 years.
And So then will there be attorney fees with the redevelopment commission and the holding company?
So once the bonds are issued, there really aren't any ongoing fees because the lease rentals are paid to the bond trustee and the trustee pays the bondholders. So there's no documents or it's really the upfront costs or the cost of issuance of the bonds. There are not ongoing fees on an annual basis if I understand your question.
And do you have any idea what the or do you want me to talk to your associate? I have a question on when the bonds can be matured. What's going to be the target on that?
Oh, yeah, I can turn that over to Andy. Any other questions for me?
Good evening, council members. Andy Mauser with Baker Tilly. We serve as financial advisor to the Redevelopment Commission. To that question, we do anticipate a 25-year financing from when bonds are issued. Typically on a financing such as this, there'll typically be an 8 to 10 year call. So you'd have the ability to pay the financing off. At that point, we also will be funding the debt service reserve fund and anticipate that reserve will be sufficient to pay, I think, the last 2 or 3 years on the financing. So it'll actually shorten it down to about a 22, 23 year financing. But just kind of a quick overview of kind of what we're looking at from a financing perspective. I think this is a very exciting project for Michigan City for a lot of reasons. Talking about a $93 million project, we think something of this size could assess in the $40-50 million range. Looking at a city like Michigan City, you've got a tax base of about $1.5 billion. So that's potentially 2 to 3% of your total existing tax base. Certainly a sizable investment. As Randy mentioned, the building corporation is a bit new as far as what the city's done in the past, but in a lot of ways, this will look very similar to previous redevelopment financings that the city's done in the past. I know many of you have been on the council redevelopment commission. We've done a number of public infrastructure financings over the years. This will look very similar in a lot of ways. As far as the security structure, bonds will be backed by the city, which will allow us to obtain that A+ bond rating, strong rating, and obtain the lowest interest rate on the financing. But we fully anticipate that the financing will be, fully repaid from redevelopment commission revenues. So I think that's important. No additional taxes on, city taxpayers. Again, this will be all repaid from project-specific revenues, as well as existing TIF of the city. And when we look at, the TIF, we expect this project to generate your existing north side TIF and your existing south side TIF. We're currently estimating, assuming no growth within your areas, that your coverage, your debt service coverage, including this financing and all other existing financings of the city, would remain around 150%. So for every dollar of debt service, you've got about $1.50 of revenue coming in through the redevelopment commission. And I think that's certainly important. That provides that protection to make sure that, again, this is fully supported through existing revenues, not counting on any additional growth, but then at the same time that 150% coverage also ensures that all those non-debt obligations that the redevelopment commission, currently takes on, and all the other good that they provide through the city, that they'll continue to have that capacity going forward. So I think this is a project that can certainly spur additional growth, both within your existing TIF areas, as well as through the newly created Transportation Development District as well. So I'd be glad to answer any questions on the financing, kind of where current estimates are, or the structure and how that fits in.
In your calculations, did you take into account the closing of the NIPSCO Gen Station and how it affects the tax base in Michigan City?
The NIPSCO station, I think, primarily is outside of the TIF areas. So that's within the tax base. It will not affect any of the revenues that will be used to repay this financing. One thing I think that's important to mention that we have taken into account is, while the NIPSCO plant will go away here in the next few years, your TIF areas also have expirations that will occur. And a lot of that assessed value that's currently captured in your TIF areas will at that point be put back in the tax base. So what you're losing from the generating station closing, I think looking at the expirations, your north side has a large portion, I think about $83.5 million will be returned to the tax base in 2029. And then within your south side area, about $92 million that'll be returned as well. So, very sizable additions to the tax base there.
Any other questions from council members? Having none? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Okay. Are there any comments from the public on this resolution? Any comments from the public? Any comments from the public? Having none, public comment section is closed. Any comments from the council? Councilman Dabney, I believe your light popped on.
I was just going to get motion to approve.
Support.
Councilman Dabney made a motion to approve and seconded by Councilwoman Deitch. Madam Clerk, on the vote.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jagus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Mack,
Aye.
and Ms. Deitch.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Council members, it was brought to my attention that Councilman Paul Prespolinski was asking if we can move up the ordinance that's on third reading, creating the section 98-252 in chapter 98 for the lateral repair ordinance, moving that up. Because I know the group of from Pearl Street is here this evening and they've been waiting very patiently. Otherwise, they're going to wait another 2 hours and we don't have to do that. So if it's okay with the council, we move them up.
Make the motion.
Second. Okay, motion was made by Councilman Paul Prespolinski and seconded by Councilman Michael Mack. Madam Clerk, on the vote.
Sorry, guys. Okay, Ms. Jagus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman, aye. Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Mack,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
All right, with that being said, Madam Clerk, if you would please read our first ordinance of the evening. That's actually on third reading by title only.
An ordinance on third reading by title only, creating section 98-252 in chapter 98 of the Michigan City Municipal Code to establish a fund for subsidizing parts of certain sewer lateral repairs within the city of Michigan City.
And do the authors have anything that they would like to say at this time? Councilman Paul Prespolinski.
Today we held a workshop earlier and we discussed the funding mechanism and how many repairs are out there that need to be refunded. So with the after the meeting, with the input that I had from the sanitary district and the memo from the Harris Law Firm with Mr. Myers contributing to it, I would like to make a amendment to the original ordinance on the last, therefore be it ordained sentence 2, that I'm changing the amount from 250 to 150, and on the sentence on the same section 9, I'm changing the balance on the annual fund from 150,000 to 100,000. So I think that with those amendments that the ordinance is more sustainable, and I believe that that's enough money to get where we need to go and have money left over for anything in the future, since the sanitary district said that they have between 3 and 6 on an average. But also I want to give you the knowledge that our infrastructure is old, and a lot of these sewers are tile sewers, and there's other things that need to be looked at. And one of the big things is that the sewer projects that were proposed in the 2017 study of the Lafayette Sewer Project need to be looked at, and we need to come together and get this some funding together to start doing this, because redoing these laterals, not the laterals, but the main lines, and moving them off of the main thoroughfares and getting them out of the easements where all the trees are at is going to help the situation in the long term. Plus, getting these projects going and moving forward will also help the sanitary district on stormwater separation to the plant. On the study that I gave you with the maps, you could see how big that project is. And I didn't get any figures on what it would mean, but I'm going to work on that with the sanitary district on how much the separation would help them. Thank you.
Okay, there's been a amendment. Is there a second?
I second it.
All right, amendments made by Councilman Paul Przybylski.
I had one question, and
Okay, and seconded by Councilwoman Deitch, and Councilwoman Deitch has a question.
So we made amendments at the last meeting, and I just want to make sure. So the copy with the blue and the pink and the purple,
Yeah.
which part is right? Is the amended
He
version?
amended the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
The whole color,
Right.
the only thing he changed and gave me was where he changed it to 150,000 on the first page and
Right, and on the second.
100,000 on the third page.
So everything in blue and
He
purple
highlighted.
is right, and everything scratched out is the old that we replaced in our last amendment at the last council meeting.
Correct.
And everything that's not struck. is
Okay.
correct.
I just want to make sure because it's colorful and
And you have to blame the attorneys for that, because it used to be a process called red line,
right.
where before there were computers, you use a red pen to strike through things and write things in. And the computer programs have kind of taken that on, and they're color coded based on who made the amendment.
I thought so.
So that the attorneys can track what amendments were made, what was agreed to by whom, things like that.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that this is the most update with all these colors on it. And okay, so yeah, I support that.
All right.
All right.
Okay, there's been a amendment made and a motion. The second, Ms. Nyland on the vote.
Mr. Paul Przybylski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Przybylski,
Aye.
and Ms. Jacobs.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
And with the amendments being made, are there any other comments that the authors would like to make?
Yes, I have one.
Councilwoman Deitch?
Yeah, and appreciate Councilman Paul doing the workshop. Some of the information that we received. So from 2019 until now, we're only looking as far as going back to reimburse the residents that have already gone through this. It's only about $60,000 Again, this is city property that they had to pay out of their pocket to get this done. So $60,000. They've been averaging about three. They said about three per year. And so we'll see. The thing is to get this, get something on the books to start the process. I know that Controller Hoffmaster asked a question earlier about the sanitary district spending some of their money to figure out how to come up with some cost and pay for this. So I think that's something we can investigate, but we're on third reading now and trying to figure this thing out. And maybe that's something we can investigate with the resolution that the sanitary district has in the future. But I think $100,000, and we can revisit it each year if we so choose to figure out, it might be more, it might be less, but you got to try something at least. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak for or against this ordinance?
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. That was going to be my question. I don't understand why sanitation is not flipping this bill. I don't know why the city's spending a dime. This is something they should have done a long time ago. We pay our fees and they charge an ungodly amount to hook us up to water or fix laterals. It doesn't make sense to me. But I will say this, when it comes to those properties that are those properties where we need to fix the laterals or the mains, we need to look at redevelopment. These people are tearing us up and we don't benefit from it. I live in the North Tiff. Hasn't benefited me at all. Paying my taxes, we're doing everything we're supposed to do. I don't see the benefit of it. I don't know why we won't take money from redevelopment as well and make them pay for it. If it's in the TIF, make them pay for it. That's what the TIF money is supposed to be for, redevelopment. Make sure that those neighborhoods get taken care of. Our infrastructure is very old and it's outdated and it's crumbling right before our very eyes. So let's get something done. Thank you for bringing this up, Paul. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Ma'am.
Hello, Kathleen Arnold, 420 Pearl Street. Just wanted to say that I'm one of the Pearl Street neighbors. I've actually helped my next door neighbor clean up the mess from having to have her lateral repaired and everything, and appreciate all the work you guys have done on putting this together. I really hope it's something that you do vote on and that the mayor does approve. I know that this is one of the reasons that the Riverboat money is there for us. So I'm hoping that this is something that you really consider and vote to approve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this subject? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on the subject? Any more council comments?
Move for adoption.
Support. Okay, and one thing I would like to say about this ordinance, I think it's a very good ordinance. It's probably something that we should have looked at a while back, but we didn't, and we did now. I'm glad that we got the numbers from the sanitary district, and we could fund this with a reasonable amount. So that's appreciable. And I do believe that getting back to what was said during the workshop, as far as the sanitary district getting more involved in paying for projects like this, even paying for the Lafayette sewer project, which we've been talking about for years, that I believe that there needs to be a joint meeting with the administration, sanitary district, so that there's no guesswork here as how much money, who has what. The city controller should know what the sanitary district has, And the mayor should know what the sanitary district has. And if they feel that the sanitary district should be flipping more of the bills, well, then that has to come from the leadership of the city. The city council can't direct the sanitary district on what to do. We don't have any say so over or what they do and how they run their business. Although we can't set their policies. And I think that needs to be done. I think that needs to be done from a financial source to see exactly how much money the sanitary district has and what they can do to help themselves. And in that way, the city controller knows exactly what they have and the mayor knows exactly what they have. And they can pass that information on to the city council. And then we would know exactly how much they have instead of us having to pay for garbage trucks, having to pay for another $250,000 for another vehicle that's coming up here this evening. And all I can say, as far as with those garbage trucks, if it wasn't for ARP money, I don't know where we would be depleting the Riverboat Fund another $1 million. So I'm just saying, we have to know exactly where all the money's at. And I'm glad that the city controller brought that up today at the workshop. Now it's up to the city controller, the mayor, to get with the sanitary district and see what the financial picture is. And with that being said, was there a motion?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Motion by Councilwoman Deitch and second by Councilman Paul Przybylski and Councilwoman Tracy Tillman. Ms. Nylam on the vote.
Ms. Tillman? Aye. Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
Mr. Mack?
Aye.
Ms. Deitch?
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski?
Aye.
Ms. Jigus?
Aye.
And Mr. Paul Prespolinski.
Definitely aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed. There you go.
All right, everybody on Pearl Street's happy tonight, right? Great. And some other folks are happy too because they'll be getting paid retroactive going back. So that's good. Madam Clerk, our first ordinance on first reading this evening by title only.
An ordinance on first reading by title only, amending ordinance number 4650, commonly known as 2023 salary ordinance, to create the position of social worker. And this is introduced by Ms. Deitch.
And does the author have anything she'd like to add at this time?
Yes, you all met Jocelyn this evening, and so this was approved. This was a grant that was received for law enforcement agencies to hire a social worker, and it was a part of our budget process, but was not included in the salary ordinance. So this is what this ordinance is, amending the salary ordinance to make sure that that position that was funded in the budget is included.
Thank you, Councilwoman Deitch. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Having none, any other further council comment? Any further council comment? Having none, this ordinance will be held over till our next meeting. Ms. Nylam, our second ordinance on first reading by title only.
An ordinance on first reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the Riverboat Fund for purchase of equipment to assist refuge department with special pickups. And this is also introduced by Ms. Deitch.
And does the author have anything she'd like to add at this time?
Yes, Councilman Paul held a workshop and we discussed this this vehicle. At that workshop, I plan to table this, but not now, so that people have comments and conversation. We asked a lot of questions, and I think we still have a lot of questions that we want to make sure that are answered publicly, and that maybe we, as individual council members, come up with our compiled list. Some of the things that have come up is the number of pickups that we've done. We've asked for the quarterly numbers. I think Councilman Don Privilinski for that. The one thing I didn't ask for in the workshop, but I did at a previous meeting, the total amount for our workman's comp for the refuse department. We talked about the lack of citations that were made over the last year. And I think we just want some clarity on what their plan is moving forward for pickups and cost and, you know, the ordinance. So we don't want to take this lightly, but I think there's some questions that we have. We keep buying, as Councilman Tillman stated, we keep buying all these trucks and equipment, and what will we do without ARPA? What will we do without some of this additional funding? So we want to make sure that we understand as we move forward, because I think there's some competing interests in different departments on the types of equipment that we're purchasing. So I'll let it go to public comment, then come back to council before I do anything.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
Good evening, Council. Yvonne Hoffmaster, City Controller. I had the number for the workers' comp at the workshop, and we never brought it up, and I forgot to say something. I believe there were 5 employees on the workers' comp list, and some of these injuries go into last year, and the total claims to date was roughly $177,000.
Year to date. And I think at the ARPA, I asked for three years. So if we could go back, I want to know over time, because we're buying equipment. And if we're going to buy a one-armed bandit, you know, will that help? Number one, we just want to make sure that if we're making purchases, we're going to see relief on safety, you know, because I know that Councilman Don is the liaison and they talk about all this good safety in the sanitary district, but if we're dealing with workman's comp continually in the refuse department, we need to know that, and he should be able to hear that when he goes to those meetings.
Okay, we'll see what we can come up with for the last 3 years.
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. When we purchase this equipment that we badly need, can you please make sure that you talk to Central Service and see if we can do the maintenance to those vehicles? A lot of these vehicles we buying, our maintenance, Central Service can't even work on them. And then they get sent out the door, and then garbage, furniture just stay piled up in the alleyway for weeks. And this has been a big problem. Nobody's talking about it. I don't understand, why is it that the refuse department tied in with the sanitation department? You got one to get paid by the flush, and then you have the other one that get refuge get paid by tax dollars. Don't y'all think it's time for us to separate this? You got 2 choices here. Before you even go that far, we need to either going to give it to sanitation and let them run it and let them pay for this stuff, or we're going to separate it and get a director over at refuge and get them out of the building and let them run it the way they need to run it if we're paying tax dollars on it. I mean, the sanitation department sitting over there on a lot of money. It's not doing, seem like it ain't doing too much benefiting to the people that's here. I don't understand it. So again, I go back, if we're going to buy some more equipment, it's being used in our TIF district. I don't know why redevelopment's not buying this vehicle. Y'all keep letting these people get away with stuff and don't ask them why. Please, Paul, we got to separate the 2. Or we got to combine the 2. We cannot keep letting this go the way it's going right now. Is sanitation having enough trouble running sanitation? The refuge they don't have a leader over there. It's back and forth going on over there. And they keep buying these junk equipment, these junk vehicles. I believe that they get kickbacks. These vehicles that they buy at the sanitation department, it's hard to work on them. Anybody just can't work on them. So they just sit there and just rot away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Anybody else from the public wish to speak on this subject?
Michigan City Mayor Dwayne Perry, regarding the subject of the excessive waste that we're having around Michigan City right now, we are addressing it. All we can do right now is to utilize both street and refuge departments to try to keep up with it. We're getting more debris left out in the street than we've ever had before. The last 2 weeks, the administration and sanitary district has been working on a plan to handle this and a billing rate, because we are going to bill people that schedule pickups and people that just put it on the street. We are going to give citations to. By your first meeting in July, we will have our program and billing rates put together for everybody to see. But as far as the equipment goes, we're getting everything from refrigerators to cars to tires, you name it. So this claw truck that we've been talking about is really a necessity. I believe when we present the program to you, you'll see it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? Having none, public comment is closed. Council comments, Councilman Dabney.
Yeah, and talking about this problem that we have around the city with the garbage piled out in front of houses and back of the houses and things like that. When it comes to the pricing, I hope that our pricing is going to be more expensive than a dumpster. As long as it's cheaper to use the city than get a dumpster, that's what's going to happen. And our guys are going to be stretched thin, running all over the place trying to do what they need to do.
Councilwoman Zegas?
Yeah, I really along the same lines as Councilman Dabney. It has to be a cost to the person who's having this garbage piled in front of their house that's equal to or more than the dumpster. So there's two things that we're kind of a little confused today. If you have a sofa or a larger piece of furniture that you need picked up, I believe you just call and let them be aware so that they can have, the proper number of people there. That's a lot different than having a giant mountain of construction debris that people decide just to throw it into the street, or maybe someone has moved out or has been taken out of the apartment and they're just all their belongings just piled in a pile. That should cost the person some money because it really does take time and materials to get that done. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the new plan is.
Councilman Paul Perbolinski.
I got to say that, when it comes to this refuge and trash and what Councilwoman Zega got into about the fee structure, and the residents are paying their fair share, and a lot of them don't even get extra pickups every year. And I will tell you previously that you were allowed by Mr. K, who was the director, that you got one special pickup a year. And we're not talking about a couch or something like that, but you were supposed to call and schedule it. So when it's out, they know it's going to be out and everything is, cohesive so that there's not junk laying out on the street, in the pedestrian walkways. But what's going on is what I talked about at the workshop, is there are a lot of people that have homes that they rent out, and when they evict a tenant or they kick them out or whatever they do, they just throw everything out in the alley, or they'll pile it on the side of the house. And it just didn't start last year. This has been a tendency that I've been looking and seeing going on for a while now. And the problem is this, is that they know who owns that house. They know how to identify who owns that house, and they know how to give them a citation. But the problem is, this is a big problem on enforcement, is that who is doing it and who needs to be cited. And if they don't pay after so many times, you know, when you get a citation, the fine keeps going up. Well, then put a lien on that house. And people say, well, they don't pay that lien. Well, they can't sell that house with a lien on it. So you see, this is problematic at its best degree on what's going on and how the residents and the departments are being taken advantage of. So we got to get refuge department together with the inspection department to enforce the code. People, and I think, here's what I think. This is a direct reflection on the stringent code and people just not having a permit and throwing their stuff on the street. And I will say this, is that people have not been getting citations or even a warning about this stuff. So I think that we need to have more discussions about it and work through this problem. Thank you.
Councilwoman Deitch.
And just to add on, so with our refuse fees, just understand we have some homes that have 2, 3, 4, 5 garbage cans that we just spend all that money on toters. We don't charge for pickups. We haven't been charging for pickups. We have a spring cleaning and a fall pickup. That's 2 pickups everybody gets per year already. And now we're not charging for pickups. We're not citing anybody. And I'm thinking about all the money that we could have collected to pay for this vehicle because we're not doing any of that. So with that being said and all the comments, I move to table this indefinitely. And we'll bring it back up the table in the future.
Motion to table by Councilwoman Deitch and seconded by Councilman Prince-Polinsky, Paul Prince-Polinsky. Madam Clerk, on the vote, please.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jigus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
and Ms. Schulman.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Okay, Madam Clerk, our next ordinance on first reading by title only.
An ordinance on first reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the local income tax fund for contractual services for necessary tree removal. And this is introduced by Mr. Paul Prespolinski.
And does the author have anything you'd like to add at this time?
I would like to say that we have a multitude of trees that have been identified that are dangerous. And I believe that we definitely need to get this money allocated because not only that the department's taken down, but some big trees need to be contracted out. And, you know, I don't like to cut down or even think about cutting down a tree, but you know, it's like everything has a life cycle. And some of these photos, a lot of people don't know that a lot of these trees, when they're cut, in the photo on your leaflet that you got from Mr. Director Smith, will show you that there's a limb that was cut off of this tree, and then by the looks of it, it looks like a maple, that in the wound, you can see the growth rings on the tree trying to cover up where it was cut. It was a huge limb, but it's rotted out, and a lot of these trees get rotted out on the inside, and they become dangerous. So I think we need to move forward on it. And I know been doing some riding around and I've seen a lot of trees that you wouldn't think are dangerous, but they're dying, and you know, they're dead from the top up, and halfway they look okay, but on the top, they're dead. Thank you.
Okay, anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance?
Riding McCormick 617 Union Street. The money should definitely be given out to get these trees removed. Just on Union Street, property, a lot adjacent to my property. They had to call a tree service out. Sean, they had to come out and call a tree service out to trying to make the alleyway where the street lights can go up and down. But what was discovered was a gigantic branch that's just sitting there. And when the tree service came, they moved one limb and it came crashing down. It was loud. There's a lot of these trees all through Michigan City. I know a lot of us like to hug trees and some of us don't. My mother was on a fixed income. We have a lot of our residents on fixed income. They can't afford to take these trees down. These trees are they're causing serious damage. And we need to identify those trees. We need to help out the homeowners. They paying their taxes. They've been living here for 60 years. The least we can do is help them get some of these trees tore down, or at least give the street department the equipment, a better bucket truck, send them to training. It might be cheaper to do it that way as opposed to contracting some of this stuff out. But it definitely needs to be done. We should not be waiting on this. This will make the life better for the residents of Michigan City. Thank you.
Yeah, Tommy Kolovic, 1316 Ohio Street. I think you all know me. I'm not shy, one bit shy about firing up a chainsaw. I take after my grandpa Watson, Arkansas. That man rather cut down the tree than look at it. But I got this sweet gum out in front of my house that they planted maybe long before I bought the property way back when. Those are really trees that grow in the South. You know, they make all those little balls and all those little burr balls all fall in my tree lawn and in my yard. I want to cut that down, but you know, we got a process we got to go through if we want to cut down a tree on city property. But you know, I so much I gotta have a compulsion just to knock that sucker down. Thank you.
Thanks, Tommy.
Easy, Tom.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Sean Smith, Street Director, City of Michigan City. Most of all these trees you see in this leaflet, these trees are hazardous, infectious trees. Some of these trees, for one of the pictures, we took a ruler, 24 inches, 2 feet, and we put it all the way through the tree trunk. There's nothing supporting a majority of these trees that we had currently taken down. And there's still trees that are left out there. Some dead trees, the limbs are hanging over intersections where you pull the car up to. A few years ago, we had an incident, a young lady, tree fell right out of the sky, fell on the car. We just three days ago, I had a call to service from Michigan City Police Department in reference to another dead limb that was hanging over Barker Ave, and I believe it was Dewey Street. This limb fell out of the sky, arced the power line, set the whole power line on fire. We couldn't get out to the tree because, of course, NIPSCO had to go out, de-energize the line, make it safe for us to remove the trees. So I'm hoping this is all public safety here. I mean, we all love trees, but trees can be very dangerous if not taken care of. So I hope that this is something that we could look to doing this appropriation. Go ahead, Councilman President.
Yeah. No, are you done?
Yes.
Sean, okay, yeah. What I was going to ask you, okay, if someone has a tree on their private property, well, you know, it's going over the sidewalk, there's limbs hanging over the sidewalk. Is that something that the city can address? How would the city address that?
It poses imminent dangers. Obstructing view is hanging over city right away, city easements. Yes, we can't remove the limb itself. We can't take down the whole tree because it's on private property, but we can make it safe for the flow of traffic. Public.
So let me ask you, is $100,000 enough to take care of the trees that are dangerous right now?
Currently it's sufficient right now to get us work. What we're doing right now, we're taking down emergency. We're doing emergency trees. Some of the small work we're able to do with our, my bucket truck. But just other trees are just too big for my department to do. And that's when we pull in the contracts. But to answer your question, currently right now, these funds should be okay to get us to where we need to go. And that's to the fall season.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? Having none. Any other council comments? Councilwoman Zegas?
Yes. So first of all, yes, we probably do have a lot of dangerous tree limbs that have not been taken care of. This is the result of having 2 years of not having an arborist. So what I do want to point out here is that this money has to be used by contractual services for a certified arborist. No tree should be taken down without having a certified arborist look at it, because you might not know what's good or bad about the tree, but that's what the arborist is for. So if you're contracting with somebody that has an arborist, that's great. But if you are willy-nilly just cutting things because they look kind of bad, I think that's a very dangerous road to go down. And second of all, I believe this money is for city trees and the tree lawn. And of course, if it's over city property, that's one thing, but it might not have to go down. Maybe the branches have to go down. So this is like, people need training to make a judgment before you just cut a tree down because he kind of is inconvenient. Thank you.
Any other comments by the council? Any other comments by the council? Having none, this ordinance will be held over for second reading at our next meeting. Ms. Nyla, our first ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, an ordinance vacating a public alleyway located in the city block bordered by Franklin Street, Pine Street, 11th Street, and 10th Street. And this is introduced by Ms. Deitch.
I just wanted to mention that also tonight, we're going to have a formal public hearing on this tonight also.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Yes, this is to vacate alleyway in the station block for our 11th Street project. And I see a whole entourage that came down to speak. So I will pass it on over to them. And I think it's okay to ask for second and third reading on this evening. I think we've met all the requirements with the public hearing for tonight. So I will be asking for third reading after comments.
Good evening, Council. Alan Saranac. I'm the attorney for the Redevelopment Commission. Just one last comment to answer your question about how much will $100,000, having just had 3 trees removed from my house, is out in the county because of that moth problem that infected the trees and they died. $1,000 a tree. That's a good rule of thumb to follow. So you're looking at 100 trees for your $100,000 for what it's worth.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm here tonight. If you kind of heard the presentation before, there are a lot of things that the General Assembly does that are, I think, well-meaning, but they sure do make you jump through an awful lot of hoops just to get to that point. And this is no exception to that. This alleyway is part of the station block property that the Redevelopment Commission has purchased 7 of the 9 parcels that are there. The other 2 parcels are owned by NICD. In anticipation of this development project, all of the utilities have been removed. I'm not sure what the public alleyway was for to begin with, but the public alleyway runs from Franklin Street on the west side to Pine Street on the north side, right smack in the middle of the parcel. And the idea then behind vacating the public alleyway is so that Global Engineering can then go forth and take what is now 9 parcels or 12 actual property parcels, 9 actual resident parcels, to combine them into 2 different parcels. One parcel will be for the garage that you've heard about. The other parcel will be for the mixed-use building. This is just a necessary task that needs to occur before we can actually begin construction and before we can start conveying property over to the whole procedure that it goes to the city, then to the developer, then to NICD, then it just gets out of hand. But this is the first step that's necessary to do that so that Shem Khalil can then resurvey the property, replat the property. We record this new platting, and instead of having 12 different parcels, we now have 2, one for each of the big projects.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Cernak? Councilman Paul Prozapolensky.
I don't have a question. I just want to give Alan some history on that alleyway. There used to be a bus terminal in that building to the east in the front section.
Right.
And there was a big, not a facade, but a covered loading area where out-of-state buses came in there and drove in and picked up passengers and such. Just a little bit of history there. Okay, that was the purpose, Alan.
Now I know. Better for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cernak. All right, anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Yeah, okay, it's open for public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on this ordinance? Formal public hearing is now closed. 3 times?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Formal public hearing is now closed. Formal public hearing is now closed. Oh. Oh. All right. So I think I made 2 and I need 1 more. Okay. Does anybody from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? No, that makes 3. We're moving on. Okay. With that being, it was
I'm getting ready to make a motion.
Okay. Councilwoman Deitch?
Yes, I move that we move to the 3rd reading.
Second.
There's been a motion to have this ordinance moved on to 3rd reading by Councilwoman Deitch and seconded by Councilman Paul Prozapolensky. Ms. Nyla on the vote.
Mr. Mack,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jagus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
and Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Okay, and does the author have anything she'd like to add at this time?
No.
I have to reread it.
Oh,
Pardon?
she's reading.
An
it.
ordinance on 3rd reading by title only, an ordinance vacating a public alleyway located in the city block bordered by Franklin Street, Pine Street, 11th Street, and 10th Street. And this is introduced by Ms. Deitch.
And does the author have anything she'd like to add?
Nope.
No? Okay. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Public hearing is now closed. Any more council comments?
Motion to support.
Second.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Tillman and second by Councilman Paul Prozapolensky. Ms. Nyla on the vote.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski.
Aye.
Ms. Jagus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
and Mr. Mack.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. You're welcome. Okay, Ms. Nyla, our next ordinance on 2nd reading by title only.
An ordinance on 2nd reading by title only, an ordinance vacating a portion of streets and alley in the city of Michigan City located north of Washington Boulevard, south of Jake Lane, and east of Lorraine Road. And this is introduced by Mr. Dabney.
And we will also have a formal public hearing. Oh, no, the formal public hearing was held on June the 6th. Okay. Councilman Dabney?
Yes, this is a cleanup of vacating some streets and alleys that have not been used over 100 years back in that PUD that we approved earlier. It's gone through the planning commission and the city council, but now these are just cleanup of things that need to be done there with these streets and alleys, just need to be vacated. And also after the formal public hearing done, I'm going to ask for a 3rd reading tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilman Dabney. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wishes to speak on this ordinance? Having none, public hearing is closed. And at this time, Councilman Dabney? Yeah, make your motion for third
Make the
reading.
motion to move to third reading.
I second it.
Okay, there's been a motion by Councilman Dabney and seconded by Councilwoman Deitch. Ms. Nyla on the vote.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
and Ms. Deitch.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. And would the author like to comment anymore? Okay.
No comments.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Having none, public comment is closed. Any other council comments on this ordinance?
Move for adoption.
Support.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Deitch and seconded by Councilwoman Tillman. Ms. Nyla on the vote.
Ms. Jacobs,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman, Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
and Mr. Don Prespolinski.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
And Ms. Nyla, our next ordinance on second reading by title only.
An ordinance on second reading by title only. An ordinance on second reading by title only, approving and authorizing the use of training equipment reimbursement agreement between the city and new applicants to the police and fire department and creating section 70-102F and section 54-139 in the Michigan City Municipal Code. And this is introduced by Mr. Don Prespolinski, Mr. Paul Prespolinski, and Ms. Tillman.
And do the authors have anything they'd like to add at this time? Councilwoman Tillman?
Thank you. I just wanted to just address a couple of things. I know at our prior council meeting on first reading that a representative from MCPD spoke in regards to this and conveyed their concerns, and also on behalf of the Michigan City Fire Department. And some of the questions or statements that were made, it's easy to say what they would agree to or not agree to, or if it's in the best interest or not, without allowing the public as well to know the reasoning why. And I'm saying this to say because it was statements made in regards that it was not going to cover any individual, or they're locking them in this contract, and that if any individual wishes for whatever reason not to continue on, that there was no language in the contract that would allow them to do so. And so, and just on that particular one, and in the contract in number 6, I'm going to read, which says, in no event shall liquidated damages as set forth above be assessed if the applicant fails to satisfactorily complete training at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy or terminate his or her employment during the first 60 months because of disability, illness, or injuries which render said applicant physical unable to perform his or her duties as police officers for the city as verified by a competent physician approved by the city. In addition, no liquidated damages shall be assessed if applicant terminate his or her employment with the city by virtue of mutual consent of applicant and the chief of police, which said mutual consent shall be reduced to writing and executed by both the applicant and the chief of police. And I'm just saying this to say that there is many paragraphs in this contract that allows an individual, should they not continue on. So, and I'm hoping that they're able to recruit new officers if we didn't have something like this in place. But not having something like this in place, I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical number. So if we have 20, let's say they need to hire roughly 20 people to fill their roster at $7,000, you're looking at roughly what, $140,000. The reasoning of the bonuses that was given out, one of the things was for retention and for recruiting. So by doing this and hoping that they actually are able to fill their roster, and that's a big hope, and I'm looking forward to it. But if not, they're able to do the training, all expenses by the city, and they come in with the bonus. Are we to believe that that dedication and loyalty is going to be there to where they're going to stay without having some type of safety net put in place as far as accountability and from a financial standpoint for the city finances? And I say no, because if we're having that problem now before we had this put in place, I think that they're going to stay and do that training, and they're going to receive this bonus, and they can still walk away. Mm-hmm. So where is the safety net for the department and for the city finances? So for that, I'm going to be requesting to table this and to have a workshop. I think that there has been
Second.
Oh, he's spicy.
If I could just finish.
Yeah, finish. You can finish your statement, Councilwoman Tillman.
Mixed feelings in regards to the contract. And I don't want this to pierce any of the officers, whether it's the police or the fire department, that if they're in the agreement for this, or they feel that it can be tweaked a little bit, instead of 5 years, maybe 3 years, but there has to be something put in place so that we don't continue to see the current pattern that we were seeing before the lick came along.
Yes, sir. Doubt about it.
I agree.
There's been a motion to table this ordinance and a second by Councilwoman Tillman. Made the motion to table, second by Councilman Paul Przybylski. Ms. Nyla on the vote.
Clarify it indefinitely, right?
Yes.
Tabled
indefinitely.
Tabled indefinitely.
And have a workshop, correct?
Right.
Yes, and a workshop on this ordinance. Ms. Nyla on the vote.
Mr. Paul Przybylski?
Aye.
Ms. Tillman?
Aye.
Mr. Dabney?
Aye.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Ms. Deitch? Ms. Deitch?
Aye.
Mr. Don Przybylski?
Aye.
And Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Ms. Nyla, our next ordinance on second reading by title only, please.
An ordinance on second reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the ARP Coronavirus Local Physical Recovery Fund for the 7th edition to the initial plan for use of a portion of the city's allotment of local physical recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act to allocate monies to assist with the funding of the designation playground in Fetters Alley for the Park Department. And this is introduced by Ms. Jacobs, Ms. Deitch, and Mr. Don Przybylski.
And do the authors have anything they'd like to add at this time? Councilwoman Zegas?
Nothing really additional to last time. This is going to be a great asset for the city. There were some incorrect maps and comments made last time, but it's not going to take up the entire Fetters Alley. That is not pristine forest. It is just grass. And it's part of that slope is really part of the design of the park. So this is exactly what ARPA money is for. Big projects that you wouldn't be able to do on your own. And I fully support it, and I hope we can pass this today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I have a few comments. I'm also an author on this, and that is that just like Councilwoman Deitch has said, and I know a few other council members, that what we've done with this ARP money, we have bought trucks, we have bought this, we have bought garbage trucks. Well, what have we really bought? What have we really bought for the citizens of Michigan City that they can enjoy? They can go down to a park. They can go down to a destination playground. They can go to a fully ADA accessible playground. And also, besides that, it'll have a walking track going around the whole entire Veterans Alley property that will not be invading any trees. No trees are going to be cut down. And the sidewalk will be 4 feet wide. It's not going to hurt a thing. Then there's going to be exercise equipment out there for folks. They want to come out there and enjoy that. It's going to be adjacent from the senior center where folks can walk right across the parking lot, do their little workouts, go for a walk, and get out of the parking lots. They don't need to be walking in parking lots. Michigan City's better than that. So that's for the local community. But now we look at what's called a destination playground. It's a playground that draws folks from all over, I'm going to say northern Indiana, northwest Indiana. And, people can sit there and shake their heads and say, no, this will never happen. But every community that we visited, that's what the park directors were telling us, that these parks draw people from other communities. And what will that do for our park system? It'll bring people into the zoo. It'll bring more people into the park. It'll bring in more parking revenue. So that's a plus in those two things. And it's going to give children, teenagers, and ADA I'm not going to say special needs, but people that have disabilities to be able to enjoy equipment like that. And I know I've heard the discussion about neighborhood parks. We need this, we need that. And we do. I agree. Neighborhood parks need to work over, but this particular park here is going to take the place of a playground. Veterans Alley playground, a playground that in my mind shouldn't even be up. I mean, you have playground equipment there that's 70 years old. It's just outdated. So anyway, I started with this program. I started with this project 6 years ago, and now we're getting to the point where we're being able to get financing, and this here will just continue on that path to bring this playground to a reality. Thank you. You have anything, Angie? Okay. All right. And also this evening, we're going to have a formal public hearing on this. So at this time, I open it up to the public in a formal public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this?
Go ahead. Here's the branch. Nancy Moldenhauer, 107K Lane. I am 100% in favor of this project. And City Councilman Przybylski, I want to acknowledge you as liaison for the Human Rights Commission, that you've always looked out for our residents who have special needs. And this is an expansion of that personal concern that you've had. And I know that past Councilwoman Joanne Tedesco, who has a special needs child, and used to serve on the Human Rights Commission would be extremely proud and very supportive of this project for every single kid in our community that right now is excluded from our playground equipment. So I want to acknowledge you, Councilwoman Zigas, also for spearheading this project. It's something that our community really needs. And so just thank you so very much for being concerned about every single one of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance?
Yeah, Tommy Klavic, 1316 Ohio Street. There's no denying that, something needs to be done on new playground equipment and on Fetters Alley, but I don't think we need a fancy destination playground there. I think we need something more simply. So maybe something along the line of a Valparaiso that they put in maybe about 10 years ago at their old Porter County Fairgrounds property out on Calumet Avenue there. And what are we going to do? We're going to have this playground, have all these people come in here, and they're going to have to use the porta potty there by the band shell. I mean, that's pretty much all you got there to go on in that area. And you got an outhouse there, they're always overflowing, and you always got to lock them up. I just also want to make a note just to the council and the members of the public about the property that fronts Ames Field, the Pytania Parkway and the Pytania Playground, the Ames Field Fountain area. People need to understand that it's not a city park. That belongs to the Michigan City area schools. All that went in around 1995. Back when Elston Rogers consolidated and Ames Field was reconstructed, that all went in from the private donations that was raised by the Save the Fountain Committee. That was named after Mike Paitini. He was a longtime groundskeeper at Ames Field, and he's also our downtown Santa Claus, a real prominent community member. It's just, that's always, people always say, the city needs to do something. Like, you want to do something with that, you have to take that up with the school board. They meet down every last Tuesday of every month, the administration building, the old Riley Elementary School there on Carroll Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. None of our playgrounds in Michigan City has equipment that's handicap friendly. None of them. How about one piece of equipment in each park? Another issue is a lot of people transporting handicapped kids or young adults or whoever want to go to the playground. Did we put any consideration in that? Our forefathers that came and created these playgrounds in certain neighborhoods, it was a reason why they did all this stuff. And now we're just going to leave the neighborhood parks out of it and just make one big old happy playground for everybody who wants to come and pay the parking fee to take their kids over there or whatever. From what I'm listening to, I'm not against it. Go ahead and do it. But redevelopment needs to start investing money into these projects. I don't know why we're not getting money from redevelopment. We live in a TIF. I mean, let's stop giving money to breweries. Seems like that's all we do is give money to breweries, open up breweries and play loud music and make everybody in the neighborhood upset and call the police all night. Turn down the music. But again, it'd be nice to see handicap equipment in every playground, starting off with one piece at a time. I think we can get these funds from somewhere else. I believe that, again, redevelopment needs to kick in. They're not doing their part, and they invested money on nonsense. Just like helping them out, some Burnham Brewery with $52,000 just to hook up a lateral. I don't get it. Maybe someday we will. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this subject?
Shannon Eason, Assistant Park Superintendent. So a few comments. The Fetters Alley Playground does include a restroom building. It would be 12 stalls, 6 for women, 6 for men, and then a family changing area that would have changing stations for not only children, but for disabled adults. And then to address Mr. McCormick's comments on ADA upgrades to our parks, By the end of 2023, we will have upgraded 9 parks in 9 years. Super aggressive schedule. That's safety and ADA upgrades to Joe Hawkins Memorial Park, Hanson Park, Pullman Park, Gardena Park, Tall Timbers Park, Walker Street Park, Washington Park if Fetters Alley gets completed. We're working on a $750,000 ADA all-inclusive park at Water Tower Park. That's a neighborhood. That's a huge budget for a neighborhood park. And also Oak Hills this year. So when I keep hearing these comments, I heard it from Mr. McCormick at the park board meeting, the last park board meeting. We are aggressively upgrading our parks with safety and ADA access. And almost all of them are using grant funding. So to say that our department is not working on our neighborhood playgrounds is very untrue, and I take offense to it.
Thank you. Shannon, I do have a question for you. The amount of money that we got from the redevelopment commission, how much did they commit to this project? Was it $500,000?
$500,000, and then we should hear by the end of this month if we got Healthcare Foundation money. We applied for $750,000, and then we also applied for $2 million in earmarked funding through the federal government through Congressman Mervan's office. Those announcements are expected in September or October.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this matter? No? Okay.
Kathy Stransky, 223 East Barker Ave. First, I want to say that is the last main park in Michigan City. That is the last of our parks that has not been tampered with. That is our heritage. That is where we went for Sunday picnics and stuff. It's very upsetting, okay? But while you're doing all this crazy stuff and you want to put all these rides in, let's put a couple basketball courts down there because they took them away from the school playgrounds and there's nowhere for them to play. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? Having none, public comments is closed. Council comments? Councilman Pervolinski?
Well, I'm going to clarify some statements that I made at the last meeting because I was told I didn't have my figures correct. That the construction goal for this park is $4 million. I would also like to point out there's been no activity on the report by our assistant park director to do anything for the park that was incorporated to Ames Field when Ames Field and the school system in the city of Michigan City had a working agreement on establishing a park there for the neighborhoods. At one time, there's now some piece of equipment down there, but there used to be some other play equipment down there. So, as of this time, since I was on that committee, that I will be filing another Freedom of Information Act to find out, because being on that committee, that property was deeded to the city by Mr. Ames, and that it would always be in the possession of the city, the civil city of Michigan City. So we'll clear that up. So I'm glad that you're working on all the parks, and there's nothing happening in the second ward, which disturbs me. All right. And you're talking about all these other parks, but not one word about anything in the second ward. Not anything. Not even an initiative to work with St. Anthony's to donate some of that property. So getting back to the construction costs that I was told I had my figures wrong, which was $4 million. And you want this ARP money, we already allocated $250,000. So this will be a total of $1 million. I just want to remind the city council and the citizens of Michigan City that to date, you've not spent any money on any water projects or sewer projects from the ARP money, which is one of the categories in that funding from the federal government. Also, that I'm not wrong about the amount of acreage that is used by this park, because you are going to disturb Vetter's Alley. There's 8.3, and the whole land where there's an established park right now and a wash house, bathhouse, is down in that zone, down by the splash pad and the zoo, where you would have a controlled audience, but you don't want to do it there. I'm not saying I'm not in favor of doing something, but you would have a controlled audience and everybody's dead set against that. And also, I brought to your attention the Vetter's Alley through a piece of information that was brought to us by another request that I made by the Freedom of Information Act, that the designation for Vetter's Alley has been discussed, but has never been voted on to take that designation away from the citizens of Michigan City, that it was reserved only for Michigan City residents. There was discussion that there should be somebody put there to make sure that only people from Michigan City are in there. A lot of different discussions, but never a vote taken to take that designation away from that park, or that area. So what you're doing is you're subvertingly taking that away from the citizens of Michigan City. I drove through there the other day, and there were not a lot of Michigan City license plates in there. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't be reserved for the people, the people in Michigan City. So you can take my comments as that I'm against this, which I'm not. I'm just saying that I think it makes more common sense to move it in an area where you would have a controlled, audience, a destination there with the zoo, with the splash pad. Oh, is that splash pad working yet? No. Is it? Is it working, Shannon? Can you say that to the public, please?
Splash pad is not open yet because we don't have the IDEM permit, and our maintenance director, Pat Bolts, is here. There have been some troubleshooting issues with the equipment. Not sure exactly where that is, but without the IDEM permit, we can't open to the public.
Okay, but it's not operational, correct?
Well, it's somewhat operational, yes.
No, it's not operating.
It is.
Thank you.
Operating.
It's not operating.
To the
so my point is this, is you guys are doing a lot of things, but you haven't done anything for the second ward. All right. Seriously. And that
and council
is, and that is what,
and then if you would like public information from my office, you don't need to put in a public record.
Yes, I do. So it's documented. All right. So it's documented. Thank you. I don't want to get in an argument. I'm just making a point. All right. So the point is that I'm not supporting this because I think it's not in the correct place.
Out of order. We're not going back and forth arguing between a department head and a council person.
Whatever it takes.
Okay. Any more comments from the public? Okay. Any more council comments?
Yes.
Councilman Mack?
I hate to see it going south like this on this one, because this is an underserved community. If there's any such thing as the word underserved community, this is it. My son is autistic, 23 years, so I don't take him to the playgrounds anymore. But myself and everybody I know in that community, and I was a coach for the special needs for 6 years. So I know a lot of the people, LaPorte, Crown Point, different places. It's a community of people that don't have a lot of resources, that have children that need extra resources that state government or federal don't give them much of nothing. And then you have an opportunity to do something amazing for that group of parents that are in a 20-mile radius of us, where it would be just nice to have a parent have an easy place to go with other like children, similar, with equipment that's meant for them. It just don't even exist. So it is a beautiful idea. It's a great thing. When you did the survey, I know I put that on there. That makes a destination. A government that can alleviate some of the residents' problems in local, in the region, in this way, that's when you're doing the right things. And reputation. I've got a coworker in the steel mill, makes very good money, lives in Valpo, came to Michigan City just because, I'm a councilman and, just they came here for ice cream, took the kids and they went to the beach and the zoo, and the glowing results that he came back about his experience in Michigan City for a weekend, from what he's read in the paper and hears, from his actual experience of taking his kids down there. He wonders how we get all the chatter about being, going down fast. We're doing a great thing with this. We're doing a great thing in a lot of areas, and we can continue to fight against progress or fight, for things that are profitable maybe, or old things like, I'm not going to go back and forth with anybody on the basketball courts, but there's a huge body of evidence that says the basketball courts as we know them are never, ever coming back. The good kids are playing indoors at AAU with coaches, and the other kids are just kicking it at the park. We need adult supervision. We don't need more opportunities for kids to just kick it at the park. Keep up the good work, Shannon. This is outstanding. It's one of the best things I've seen since I've been on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mack. Thank you. Any other council comments?
I'd like to move this to third reading today.
Support.
There's been a motion by Councilwoman Zegas for third reading. Who was? Okay, Councilwoman Tillman, second the motion. Ms. Nyla, on the vote.
Ms. Tillman,
Aye.
Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
Mr. Mack,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch.
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jigus.
Aye.
And Mr. Paul Prespolinski.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. And do the authors have anything they'd like to add?
It's gotta be.
Oh, yeah. Read the ordinance. I'm sorry. Ms. Nyla, by title only.
An ordinance on third reading by title only, approving additional appropriation in the budget of the ARP Coronavirus Local Physical Recovery Fund for the 7th edition and initial plan for use of portions of the city's allotment of local physical recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act to allocate monies to assist with the funding of a designation playground in Fetters Alley for the Park Department. And this is introduced by Ms. Jigus, Ms. Deitch, and Mr. Don Prespolinski.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. Do the authors have anything they'd like to add?
I'll add something.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I support this wholeheartedly, and I will say that with these parks, I know I participated in the water tower presentation and all the input sessions, and I hope that as we move through these other parks, that our citizens show up and give their input on what they would like to see at those parks, because I know that kids do things differently. They're doing a lot of some of the activities that they're doing are different, and we need the families and the kids to participate. I know at the water tower event that we had at the fire training center, there were families there with their kids, and they took into account a lot of the things that they shared. But I will say at those input sessions, very few people are participating that could really be impacted by the input because they're listening to what the residents are saying. So we need more input at the actual input sessions where they're showing all the vision boards for what could be and what they'll have in those parks. So I think it's important. From a differently abled perspective, we're going to be doing more in the parks, but I think Fetters Alley, what I remember Fetters Alley was the large rocket ship and a lot of different things in the park, not green space. So I'm not sure where that's coming from, but we went out there to play as kids. And so, it's what it is with everybody has their own opinion and you can respect that and you can laugh at it. You can do whatever you want with it. But the goal is we got to start somewhere. And this ARPA money is once in a lifetime money that we need to look back at. And again, begrudgingly approving all of that equipment and some of those things. Now we have an opportunity. We know we got money set aside for housing. We got money set aside for small businesses. And then whatever is left, we need to be thinking about opportunities in the neighborhood. So I support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councilwoman Deitch. I don't have any comments. I've already made my comments. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this?
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. I don't think nobody's against it. I think our concern is where the funds is coming from. You're giving out the ARP funds. Why you didn't give none to all the playgrounds? Why not just divvy it up? Why did this playground just get $1 million of the ARP funds instead of some of the other playgrounds getting something as well? And let me say this one more time. And when you guys leave here tomorrow, go to the playgrounds. None of the equipment at the playgrounds in Michigan City are handicap friendly. None of them. I guess this is the reason why you guys are doing this, right? But just to keep trying to badger me and continue to bring up my name and talk about how aggressive the park department is, the park department is behind times. And that goes back to leadership. And when that changes, I guess that'll change. I'm not here to bash nobody. I just want to hear the truth. When I put a public request in, I asked about the playgrounds. And then we did some walkthroughs. The playgrounds, get on the playgrounds are handicap accessible, but the equipment's not. I was told that the actual canoe launching down at Sycamore Park, we call it Sycamore Park, it's Hanson Park, that it was handicap friendly. I don't know how a person in a wheelchair can get put in the canoe unless they lift them up physically. The machine is not there to do it. I don't see it. Maybe Shannon can come out to the playground and show us, demonstrate how that works. I haven't seen it. I'm also frustrated with seeing the drinking fountains. They keep talking about drinking fountains are at the playgrounds. Hanson Park and Oak Hills, no drinking fountains there. So if you get thirsty, don't stop at those playgrounds. What you read on site is not true. There's no drinking fountains at neither one of those parks. And Hanson Park needs a major cleanup, facelift, whereas all the overgrown weeds and the trees all in the creek and the pond needs to be cleaned up. A lot of people come down there and enjoy fishing and doing other things. But again, this is not a tit for tat or going back and forth. And like I said, anger don't get nothing done in this city. Try to get angry as you want to. It's not going to change what I believe in. What I believe in is that we need to invest in all of our playgrounds equally. And I hope that if you spend $4 million in that park, you might spend $4 million in another park. That's just a wish. I know it's not going to happen, but it would be nice to see change in our playgrounds all throughout the city. Thank you.
Yeah, Tommy Klavick, 1316 Ohio Street. And you talk about everything making ADA compliant. Up there in Washington Park, we got infrastructure was all put in back in the 1930s by the Workers' Progress Administration back during the Great Depression era. We just had a Father's Day picnic at the shelter right there between the splash pad and and the zoo. I said my sister-in-law, that she went walking up that concrete thing that was put in back in the 30s. She tripped and fell over. She almost really hurt herself. There's a long way to go there. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Anyone else?
Yeah. Don, why don't we go back to the neighborhood parks? Why don't we put the ball diamonds back in? Why don't we put all the stuff back? That was the draw for our children when we were young. We all ran to the playground to watch pickup softball games or to play kickball or something. It's all gone. It's all grown over. It's a mess. The kids don't go there. If I see 3 kids a day there, I'm shocked.
No.
But we can do it, and it wouldn't cost that much to bring all that back, and you would see our kids out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Just real briefly, can I just say something to respond to Mr. Mack? I'm sorry. Just real quick. They said the kids don't like to play basketball anymore. I know in Gardena Park, they flood that playground just to play basketball on those glass backboards and on that ground. We have the police out there all the time as well. So I know for a fact there are kids that still play basketball. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this ordinance? Having none, public comment is closed. Any more comment? Yes, go ahead, Angie. Angie, go ahead. There's a mute sign up on your name sign, so I don't know what that means.
I over microphone.
She will hear
They don't direct promotion to put their cameras.
She can hear the map. Give her all one hand.
Angie, if you can hear us, go ahead and speak. Angie, last chance. Okay, let's move on.
Get better.
Move on.
Public comment is now closed. Are there any more council comments on this ordinance? Councilman Paul Perbolinski.
I just want to get the point across that, you know, you want to think that maybe I'm against this thing, and I'm not. Is that the point I'm trying to make to you is common sense to move this thing. There's enough room down to where you have plumbing, you have all the resources right there, you have all the amenities right there, you have the lakefront, and would be a good, it would, and I'm not a planner by no means, is that I think that you would have a controlled venue that's all encompassing right there. And I think that, you know, okay, Fenner's Alley's not a forest. Well, I don't know. We might have to, you know, look at what would classify it as a forest. I'm not going to cut through those hairs. But the point is that it's a piece of property that's undisturbed, and we got to disturb it. So my point is that we need to look at it. It's really kind of offensive to me that the second ward has zilch, and that there's not even a movement within the city government to try to get some property from St. Anthony's, who's been given umpteen streets since I live in that neighborhood. Let's see if they want to give back some of them streets. They don't have to. It's just an idea. But the point is this, and I think that the point that Mr. McCormick makes is these other parks in our community need attention. There's not one park inside the second ward that's functional. And that's my point I'm going to leave with. Not one park inside the second ward that's functional. And you can try to tell me something different, but I think that definitely don't want to deny a venue to make money on. Okay. And this is how this thing wasn't promoted as a venue. So it's hard for me to put this in a capsule and think about it. I mean, I guess that we'll just have to be deprived on the neighborhood parks still on the grand scheme. Thank you.
Councilwoman Tillman?
We're on third reading. Motion to support.
Okay, there's been a motion to approve by Councilwoman Tillman and seconded by Councilwoman Deitch. And before we take the vote, there's just a couple comments that I want to say.
Call question. There's been a motion and second.
Right.
Close the debate, take the vote. Point of order.
Is that the chair? No, the chair cannot make a comment.
The chair can ask questions prior to the vote.
Yeah.
Board members can ask questions prior to the vote. But
okay, but if there's been a motion and a second, then we got to go right to the vote.
Typically, yes, but we've had point of privilege. We have done point of privilege and you call point of order.
Yeah. But that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. I'll save my comments for council comments. Let's move on. I'm not getting into a debate over. Okay, Ms. Nyla, on the vote.
Mr. Dabney,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
aye,
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
150% aye for getting this project moving along that every resident in Michigan City can enjoy. Thank you.
Ms. Jagus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
and Ms. Tillman.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
and see. It's good.
Okay. All right. We're moving along now under new business, nominations and vote. The Common Council representative for the Economic Development Commission. Is there a nomination?
yes. Councilwoman Tracy Tillman did send her wanting to be nominated to Council President Sean Fitzpatrick, and she copied me. So I would like to nominate Councilwoman Tracy Tillman.
There's been a nomination for Councilwoman Tracy Tillman by Councilwoman Deitch. Is there a second?
Second.
And there was a second by Councilman Paul Prespolinski. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Nominations are now closed.
Was this advertised?
Yes, at the last council meeting, Council President Fitzpatrick shared that we will bring this up.
May I say, for order at the council meeting, if you have something to say, please come up to the microphone and address the council, name and address. So just don't speak out from the seats. Thank you. With that being said, nominations are closed. Ms. Nyla, on the vote.
There's no.
There is a vote. This one, Tracy.
Hold on. Sean's not here. Mr. Mack,
Aye.
Ms. Deitch,
Aye.
Mr. Don Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Jigus,
Aye.
Mr. Paul Prespolinski,
Aye.
Ms. Tillman. Aye. And Mr. Dabney.
Aye.
We have 7 in favor and no one opposed.
You have to vote for yourself.
Thank you, Ms. Nyla. Under unfinished business, there's nominations here. The council has one appointment to the Urban Enterprise Board due to Mr. Kenny Fly resigning effective May 23rd, 2023. And the term will begin immediately and expire on 12/31/2024. Are there any nominations for this position? Councilman Deitch?
Asking for forms, because there was a form at the last meeting, just want to make sure.
I have Mr. Joseph Nelson and also a Sherry Wilson.
Oh. Who was the other one?
Sherry Wilson and Joseph Nelson.
I nominate Joseph Nelson.
Support.
Second.
There's been a nomination for Phil Nelson. Is there a second? Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Dabney. Yeah. I nominate Sherry Wilson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mack. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Miss Nyla on the vote for either Nelson or Wilson.
Take the vote at the next meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Nominations this time. Okay. So we will be voting on those positions for that position at the next council meeting. And the council has nominations here. Council has the following appointment to the Michigan City Social Status of African American Males. And the incumbent vacant position is with the Ministerial Association. Have there been any applicants or forms come in?
No, the clerk's office has not received anything.
Pardon?
The clerk's office has not received anything.
Okay, thank you. All right. So that nomination stays open. And unfinished business, the Energy Systems Group, their 3-year performance guarantee savings report for the city of Michigan City. And what do we have to do with that, Ms. Nyla, if anything?
We received this from ESG and we have 30 days to respond.
15%.
Yeah, and that's by the city engineer, right? The city engineer has to respond back to that with all the department heads giving him the information. I believe that's the way it's supposed to go.
I believe, oh, Yvonne's gone. Last year, there was a lot of questions and I'm not sure if the invoices were paid or what happened. This is just saying customer acceptance is assumed if no response has been received or signed acknowledgement sheet has not been returned within 30 days of customer's receipt of performance guarantee savings report. And this is a...
What? Would you read that one more time, please?
Okay, it says a customer's acceptance is assumed if no response has been received, if signed acknowledgement sheet has not been returned within 30 days of customer receipt of performance guarantee savings report.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. All right, moving on. Comments from the public. Any comments from the public?
Nancy Moldenhaw, 107 K Lane, Michigan City. I wanted everybody on the council to be aware that we and the general public to know that we are accepting nominations for the Nora L. Schultz Tribute Award, and this is the Michigan City Sustainability Commission. Many people knew Nora. She was the resident that was always out by Meyer, picking up all the trash that had been thrown around there and surrounding big box stores out there. So if you have a nomination, you can get that either to Andy Jans Davis or to me. And we'll be happy to take a look at those. We're happy to say we've already gotten a few nominations. And the award actually is going to be made on Thursday, July 13th at 4:30 p.m., City Hall, the EOC room. And anyone in the public is invited to attend this particular award. We want to continue this annually to recognize the work that Nora did to make our city more beautiful and also a safer place to live. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, Tommy Kolavic, 1316 Ohio Street. I have a public service announcement to make. I received a note from Mrs. Stransky at the beginning of the meeting. She asked me to read this. The 25th silver anniversary running wild race for the zoo, 5K, that's 3.6 miles you got to run. Register early and get a 25th anniversary t-shirt. It's going to take place on July 9th, 2023 at 9 a.m. at Washington Park. Now, we had the ceremony at the beginning of the meeting for the people that rescued the elderly lady and the young man. I also want to recognize our driver-operator, Eugene Hannes. And there, when he was fighting that fire, he suffered an injury, suffered burns to his face. Hopefully he makes a full recovery from that. I also wanted to mention that the Commission on the Social Status of Michigan City American Males, they're going to be having their field trip to the DuSable Museum. That's going to take place on July 8th. I plan on tagging along with them, paying my own way, just joining them on that. I'm looking forward to that. I also want to say we're going to have our joint meeting tomorrow with the council and the Fire Merit Commission for the ordinance changes. One of those, their final determination for their final rating, 15% of the final determination is a Michigan City resident. They kind of say that the Michigan City is rated too high. I don't believe that. I think I'd be against that. If that comes up, I'm going to vote against that. We need to get our Michigan City residents as opposed to try to bring in more from other places. So I've went through all the ordinance changes they want to. That's the only one that I'm not for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klavick.
Rodney McCormick, 617 Union Street. Street department, I'm gonna go back to equipment at the street department. They have payloader number 54. They came out and tried to pick up some of the brush and stuff. The jaws doesn't clamp no more. The wheels are all broken on it. It's a safety hazard to the workers. And I just don't understand why redevelopment will not help purchase some of this equipment. If we're in the TIF and it's benefiting me and I live in the TIF, you should be able to purchase equipment to take care of that. I just seen redevelopment purchase some cooking equipment for Burnham Brewery and turned around and gave it to them so they can go get a loan, use it as collateral. The stuff in the city is it's not adding up. And now, as the vice chair of the Social Status of African American Males, here we have another organization that's holding the city or holding this board hostage. Ms. Nelson, Angie Nelson Deitch, you said numerous times, you're checking into it, you're going to find somebody. The Ministerial Alliance still have not came up with anyone. How much longer are we going to be held hostage? There was minority health last time. And then when election time come around, backdoor deals made, they back on the list. How much longer are we going to wait for for a change to be made? It's simple. All this council has to do is appoint it to one pastor Or we already have 3 on there right now. Or give it to LaPorte County Council. They gave us $4,000. Let them have some kind of say in this. They investing money in the redevelop. I mean, they investing money into the social status. I think they should take the place of the ministerial alliance, or just give it to one of the pastors, as I said before. I just want to say this: the last 2 administrations, when it comes to communication, has been horrible. This department don't talk to Board of Works. Board of Works don't talk to you guys. Nobody talks to Central Service. Communication has been horrible for the last 2 terms, last administration, and now this administration. Nobody gets along. I don't understand why. I don't care about Dwayne too much either. But at the same time, he's the mayor of this city, and we all need to work together to try to get stuff done, right? The way we've been doing it is not working, and it's turned into a lot of arguments, and nothing's getting accomplished. I hope the next administration come in, or the same administration, that we improve communications. Everybody needs to work with each other. And it'd be a breath of fresh air to see that everybody on the same page, making life better for the citizens of Michigan City, and not just for a small group of people, catering to people that's going to possibly come here from out of town. And I said it before, it's good to see those candidates who are running for office to take some interest in getting up to this mic and speak about the problems that's going on in the community, or speaking of good things, Ms. Molauer, like you've been speaking of. It's good to see that. Other candidates need to step up and start talking as well. The multicolored flag is not going to get it this election. The only flag I care about is that old red, white, and blue flag up there. And it's time for us to get down to business. And I hope these candidates have enough gumption to get up here to the mic and talk. I hope you don't be passive if you get on the city council. Thank you.
Real quick, Kathy Stransky, 223 East Park Ave. I want to thank the council members. I want to thank the mayor, the inspection department, because they finally came and got the garbage. It was over 3 weeks. But then when I caught a truck out there one day and I went back there and said, "Why aren't you picking this up?" He said, "I can't." I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said he backed it up to his garage door and they couldn't pick it up because if they damaged the garage door, then the city was liable. And that's what held it up, was that they couldn't get it. He packed it against the garage door. So the next day they brought out a crew of young men and they raked it all out to the alley so they could pick it up.
That took 3 weeks?
Yeah. But it's done.
Yeah.
But.
All right, any other public comment? Having none? Council comment? Councilwoman Tillman?
Thank you. I just only have 2 things. One is, I would like to know, or how can council members find out, besides social media, when businesses come into their wards? I mean, is there a way or that something could be sent? I mean, I have a new entrepreneur who just opened up a vegan restaurant a block and a half from my home, and I had to hear about it on social media. So I would like to know the businesses that's registered with the city. If we can find out when they register, an email could be sent out to us to welcome them, or if they have any questions or concerns, if they need any guidance for anything, then we'll be able to assist them. The other thing is also within the 5th Ward, if you are seeing NIPSCO yellow flags down your streets, I just want to let you know this long haul in regards to repairing sidewalks. When I came into office in 2020, a lot of the constituents and residents within the Fifth Ward, that is one of their main concerns. I was getting phone calls about sidewalks, cracked streets, divots in sidewalks. So when we were asked to comprise a list of streets or sidewalks that needed repair, I was one of a couple from the council that did that, and I turned mine in. So the roadway segments to be paved in 2023 using the CCMG 2022-2 awards. A few of those streets right now, they have started. The first one was on Dewey Street. We got Francis Street, Cloud Street, South Porter Street, Cherry Street, Dewey. I think I just mentioned that one. And that's where they're starting off at right now. So your concerns regarding your sidewalks is in progress of being repaired. So you will be seeing construction workers out there. As I said, Dewey Street was the first street they started on. So your concerns are being addressed.
Councilman Perbolinski.
I was wondering if we could have a workshop on this thing that was on here on unfinished business that I had my mic on, but I didn't get called on this ESG because I'm still trying to figure out what this is all about, and so we could get some more information on it and see exactly how much money we're saving. Also, I would like to know if this happens again, that I'm going to call for the meeting. If this happens again, I'm going to call for the meeting to be adjourned. If we do not have a police officer assigned to this meeting. And also, I'd like to know why the redevelopment, from what I heard, and I just need it clarified, why is the redevelopment commission paying for the charging stations in the public parking lot over on is it 6th Street or A Street? But with those things out there, I believe that yes, we're not here to argue, and we're not here to we're here to cooperate. But the fact of the matter is that you don't get anything responded to under this administration unless you file a Freedom of Information Act. And I don't care what anybody wants to say. That's how I got the information in a timely fashion about Fetter's Alley and some other things. So I guess that's why that law is there. So I think that we need to examine a couple of these things, and we'll see if we get these different grants on for this park. But I still think that it should be moved, and I'm wholeheartedly in favor of moving that thing down so we have a better venue for people that come here. And I just want to make one other point about that park. This wouldn't happen to be why there was a comment made on the radio by the mayor about having a parking garage down in the park, like I believe up next to one of the back of the dunes down there, because all the parking we're going to lose in Fetter's Alley on special events. Thank you.
No. Councilwoman Zegas?
Yes, so I know I haven't talked about it for very much, but I am still working on rental inspections, and I am working for some relief for landlords. So, for example, right to repair, I'd like to discuss that with the landlords, and also working on possibly getting some grant money to assist them in fixing their properties. So those are the things that are working on. It's taking a while. I am going to have a workshop on June 28th. It's going to be at 5:30 at the EOC. So it's not in this room, but it's in that other room. And really, it's a workshop. I do want to hear from the landlords. And like I say, I'm trying to give them some assistance so that our residents, that our renters can get some relief and get better living conditions. So anyway, I look forward to hearing from landlords, tenants, whoever, on June 28th, 5:30 at the EOC. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
Councilwoman Deitch?
Yes, make sure I got the date right. Okay. First, this past weekend with Juneteenth and the Pride Fest, we had a lot of people here, and I just wanted to thank all the organizers, especially for the Juneteenth. It was the first time they've done something like this, and the group of folks that have been working on Kwanzaa, MLK, and now Juneteenth, for them to do it without really any city assistance, I think they did a wonderful job. I know that, it will only get better. I know we have our parade coming up on July 1st, and I don't think I saw a press release for it, but it is July 1st, and I think we have fireworks on the 4th. So we don't have a council meeting until after that. And then as far as, I know we talk about redevelopment. I know we gave $500,000 towards the playground, but grant funding and writing grants and our parks are important. And we know that you can't do everything at once, but, again, I haven't agreed with everything for ARPA, and, it's what it is. We have about $3 million left to do some things with. And some of it will go to small business, some to housing, which could be maintenance or down payment assistance. We're still working through all that. But just know that we're one of 9, all of us on this body. And we can't control what the administration does. We can try to put pressure, but that's pretty much all we can do. And I think Mr. McCormick said it best about communication. I know the left foot don't know what the right foot is doing in some of the departments, and I know that we have a silo. That's why we're dealing with the refuse department, the sanitary district, the Board of Works, the street department. No one. And I hope that they start having some staff meetings again. I hear that they don't really have them. So that's one of the reasons why it feels a little disjointed and disconnected. And that's not a personal attack. That's just a matter of fact. And that has come from department heads. We know we have some code enforcement issues, and we need to hire some folks. But again, I just think the people that come out and speak and voice their concerns and complaints, I want to give a shout out to the refuse department, because they've been working overtime for the last 2 weeks, every day, picking up trash. And I spoke to Mr. Connie Adams. I saw him yesterday, and they have folks working, and no citations, no anything. And I just want to make sure that people realize that I guess he's back leading the charge, and you see how fast it got cleaned up. And he's been out of that role for about a year. So now he's back in the role. And I just want to make sure that he's not a scapegoat for all the stuff that's been happening for the last year, and this trash and the piling up, because he was kind of removed out of the picture. Now he's back on it, and now all of a sudden everything's getting picked up again. So I'm just saying that for the record. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just want to make sure nobody is a scapegoat for the inadequate leadership that has occurred on this trash collection. Thank you.
I just have a few comments I'd like to make. And this here is a letter from a lady that I know, Margaret Pizzer. And I saw her Sunday, and she gave this to me. And what it's in reference to is the rates that this new garbage pickup is going to look like. And she just wanted, so I'm going to read this letter. It says, charging for extra garbage, furniture, mattresses, toilets, sinks, etc., tree limbs, branches, pickups. Inform on what the refuse department and street departments pick up, and spring and fall cleanup. So what she's asking for is information being sent out to the public in their water bills, that, you know, what's expected of the residents to do to follow the schedule. It says before the spring and fall cleanup schedules, the refuse and or street department did pick up on the area's pickup date. Okay. Then it says, I believe when the extra pickup fee is established, that the first extra pickup should be a courtesy. Okay. And any additional extra pickups from the same address should be charged. And that's it. Bottom line. In the refuse department, sanitary district can keep track of that. All right. And we all know that there's fires, estate cleanups, spring and fall cleanups, what have you. And she just wants to make sure that the residents are aware of it. And the first free pickup, or the first pickup is free, and the resident should be charged, which I totally agree with. And to my colleagues on the council, I just want to thank everybody that supported and spoke positively about this $750,000 coming out of ARP money and going into this destination playground. And I understand that all other playgrounds aren't perfect, but we've been working on this for 6 years, and we have something good here that's going in the right direction. And we need to keep it going in that direction to get it done. And another thing, I just want to let everybody know in the public and everybody that's watching on camera that none of this work was done submissively and behind closed doors or nothing like that. Everything's been out in the open. We've had public input sessions. We had the last public input session, I believe, a month and a half ago, with the Hitchcock Design Group sitting right back there in that EOC room at 4:30 on a Wednesday, showing the whole design of all the park, what this park is going to look like. There were 6 different designs, and people had the opportunity to pick what they like. And that's how this is all coming about. So nothing is being done submissively or behind closed doors. This is going to be a project for everyone in Michigan City to be able to use. And if people want to come from around the region to use this, then we're more than willing to let them come and pay their parking fees and come to Washington Park and use that little bit of Fetter's Alley, which is down on the far west end, for this park. You got to have a little future. You got to have some foresight, and you really got to have a feel or a feeling for what the community wants and what some folks in the community really need and are having a want for, so they can feel like they are part of the general population, and not to go any further with that. And with that being said, is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Meeting is over.